A true test of man and machine, the Rolex 24 is one of the crown gems in motorsports. 2024 will see the 62nd running of the race, featuring a jam-packed grid and plenty of things to talk about. Buckle up as I take you through everything you need to know about the Rolex 24 at Daytona. The Rolex 24 at Daytona is a 24-hour sports car race in Daytona Beach, Florida, taking place on the famous Daytona International Speedway. Now, when you think of Daytona, you probably think of the oval that NASCAR runs on. This race does not take place entirely on the oval though, and instead uses the road course circuit that shares the high-banked corners of the oval track. Now, Daytona International Speedway has quite a long history behind it, dating all the way back to 1903 on what is known as the world's most famous beach. The birthplace of speed, as it's sometimes referred to, as hosted speed trials until 1935 when stock car racing began. Not too long after, NASCAR would be founded, and it quickly became apparent that they needed a more permanent facility instead of the temporary beach circuit. On February 22, 1959, the World Center of Racing hosted the first Daytona 500, and it set the stage for what would become the most iconic stock car race in the world. The 3.56 or 5.73 kilometer track that's used for the Rolex 24 was built in 1959 and hosted the first iteration of what would become the 24 Hours of Daytona in 1962 with the 3-hour-long Daytona Continental. In 1966, the race would become 24 hours, and while there's been various small changes to the track and over the years since, the track layout has largely maintained its original layout and character. Now, this unique layout of course features the flat infield portion of the track with the high banked corners of the super speedway sewn together with some tricky corners and a high-speed chicane. This unique combination gives you a track unlike anything else in the world. And as a result, Daytona is a very quick track, with lap times for the GTPs ranging in and around the 1 minute and 35 second range, down to about the 1 minute and 45 second range for the GTD cars. Now, of course, with the track utilizing virtually the entire NASCAR oval, average speeds around the track are quite high. As a result, you'll often find some of your best passing opportunities on the high banks of Daytona by utilizing the draft of a car in front of you. There are also some good passing opportunities into Turn 1, the International Horseshoes, and if you're feeling just a little bit bold, then you can take a dive down the inside heading into the Le Mans chicane, aka the bus stop. Now, of course, with it being a 24-hour race, this race is contested during the daytime and the nighttime hours. And while the cars do feature headlights, the track also has floodlights that they operate at 20% of their maximum brightness to ensure that drivers still have to rely on their headlights at night. Weather can also be a massive factor in this race. Florida is prone to some big rainfall, and in 2019, excessive rain brought out red flags throughout the race and ultimately caused the race to end early. The rain is not all you need to be aware of, though. Temperatures in recent years have dipped to near freezing points and can cause quite a challenge for drivers at night when they're trying to get their tires up to temp after a pit stop. The race truly is a test of man and machine, and on the manpower side, a team can have up to 4 drivers in the car. Yes, believe it or not, it is not just one driver that competes for all 24 hours. The drivers will rotate in every about 1 to 3 hours, and they'll swap with another driver during one of the scheduled pit stops. Now, of course, a 24-hour race is a pretty darn long race, so if your favorite driver or team runs into a problem, then don't worry, there's still plenty of time for them to claw their way back into contention. In fact, with IMSA's full course yellow procedure, it can allow teams that are laps down to take a wave around during the full course yellow period and get at least one of their laps back. Now, the prize that the drivers get for winning the race is a pretty unique one. In addition to the winner's trophy, all class winners get Rolex watches. The Cosmograph Daytona that each driver receives has the year of the win engraved on the back of it. Certainly a nice piece to have for winning one of the biggest endurance races in the world. Speaking of winning, there are a few drivers on the 2024 grid that have won this race 3 times. Joao Barbosa, Scott Dixon, and Helio Castroneves have all captured victory 3 times. In fact, Helio's won 3 in a row and is going for his 4th consecutive Rolex 24 this year. They still trail the all-time overall wins leaders, though, of Hurley Haywood and Scott Pruitt, who both have 5 overall victories. This year, the Rolex 24 gets underway on Saturday, January 27th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're in the US, then you can watch the opening hour as well as the final 2 hours of the race on NBC. Or of course, you can watch the entire race on Peacock. And if you're outside the US, then the entire race can be viewed for free on IMSA TV. Whether this is going to be your first time watching the Rolex 24 or your 15th, you could probably use a little refresher on the ins and outs of IMSA. You can learn all about IMSA by checking this video out right here. Big shout out to all the Patreon supporters. If you too want to support the show, you can head to patreon.com/offintheesses. Once again though, thanks for tuning in. I hope everyone has a great race weekend and doesn't go off in the S's.